my vows scream for me, make me believe I was lost, now I'm bound. For so long I've been caught up in your ecstasy. Now I see exactly what I need. It's not enough for me. I need my life. I will sacrifice my sanity. Yeah. It's not enough for me. I fell a lie in an empty love scene. I'll put all of my trust and lost our love. I am who I think I am. A man can't see concepts are flawed and lonely, written so perfectly. The beauty that I see more than beneath misery. All was just a misplaced heartbeat. It's not enough for me. I need my life. I will sacrifice my sanity. Yeah. It's not enough for me. I fell a lie in an empty love scene. I'll put all of my trust and lost our love. Let's rearrange, get strange, let the freeze all out tonight. Tonight, light, ring around the lonely one who wants to hold me. Ashes, 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 ashes. We all fall down.
And I'm on the wrong screen as always. There we go. What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday night. Another special episode we have tonight. One that I'm really looking forward to. I've told everybody. We'll get into that in a second. But you guys know I always start the show off by showing love to those companies who help make this podcast possible. One of the newest ones and one that I really love being associated with is Blue On. If you don't know, today they officially launched for Blue On Pro members where you can order parts directly through the app and get it from your local supply house. So now you have you find that unit that's old, you can't find the manual, it's nowhere to be found. Blue On's got it. You're not a factory authorized dealer for that brand, you can't get tech support. Blue On's got you on that. Now you can go in there, you can find that exact part number, cross-reference everything, the exact thing that you need, send that right over to your local part house, whoever you normally go through, they're all on there. And there's even going to be a service where that part can be brought to you. You're in the middle of the summertime. What customers, say, I'm just putting a number on it, hey, there's going to be a $50, fee, for me to get that part today. I can have it dropped off. Is that okay, Mr. and Mrs. Customer? Who's going to say no? They're not going to say no. You don't have to leave. You can be getting something else done, cleaning the coil or whatever it is while you're waiting for that blower motor or whatever it is to show up and get those people up and running the same day. So, guys, go check out Blue On. The more parts that we buy, things that we were going to buy already, that's how they're able to make all of this completely free for you, the end user. If you do not have Blue On downloaded on your phone, you need to. It is 100% free. Become a Blue On Pro member. That is 100% free. It costs you nothing. And take full advantage of all those features that they are offering you. And starting tomorrow, if you're a Blue On Pro member, you will get a message and you will see to enter the giveaway for all the stuff that I am giving away. All right? Yellow Jacket and Blue On both teamed up on this and going to be giving stuff away to all of the Blue On Pro members, so go check them out. Next is going to be the other new one, my friends over at Chirp. I know this is more for business owners and it's not really for technicians. I try to go back and forth with the companies and partnerships that I work with to try to provide a little bit of something for everybody. Chirp is something that we use at Beltway, like I said, and we love it. It is automation made simple and it works. Your existing customer base is where you're going to make the most money. They're the people that are going to spend money with you. They trust you. You have a relationship. Those are the ones you have to stay in contact with. Let them know about maintenances coming up, any specials that you're running, all that kind of stuff. Even the little things. Hey, we're on the way. This does it so much better than the CRMs do, and it makes it real. If you guys heard the story when I was talking to Ryan, the owner, Ryan Fenn, the owner of Chirp, it was an automated thing that was messaging me, and I thought it was Ryan. I could not tell that it was automated, and that's what you want. That's what you want to see. So remember, if you go to www.chirp.com/HVAC Uncensored, they will give you 50% off your first 3 months. All right. Let's get this pledge rolling. I have an awesome guest tonight, and we will get into that here in just a moment. So let's rock out with this pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless the United States, and thank you to all those men and women who defend it.
Five, four, three, two, one, go.
Welcome to the #1 rated HVAC podcast. If you're looking to grow in the HVAC industry, then you're in the right spot. Blue collar people talking about blue collar shit. Let's get better together. So turn up the volume, buckle your seatbelt, and let's welcome your host, Gil Cavey Jr.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the HVAC Uncensored podcast. I am your host, Gil Cavey Jr. Guys, we have a great show for you tonight. This is a person that I was so ecstatic to finally meet when I was in Las Vegas, to be able to have him on the podcast. I keep forgetting it's this camera. Because this is somebody, like, now I know how people, like, I'm honored when people walk up to me and they're like, oh my God, Gil. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm nobody. You know what I mean? But now I know what the other side of that is. When I've watched somebody on YouTube for so long and I've watched their videos and I've learned from them, and I get my technicians to watch their videos. And I've said this before, that the two best people that I think that have educational, HVAC educational videos on YouTube are good friend Brian Orr from HVAC School and this gentleman right here. So guys, without further ado, let's introduce Mr. Craig Milacchio from AC Service Tech. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, Gil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm ecstatic for you to be here. It was awesome to be able to finally meet you at AHR. I know it's crazy when everybody's busy, but I'm glad we were able to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I thought it was a pleasure speaking with you at AHR, and I enjoyed meeting everybody. You know, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess I'm curious to know a little bit about your I've read some things on your website and stuff about your background. Is, how did AC Service Tech happen, and like how did you get into this field? Like, how did you become an AC man?
Well, so with how I entered the field was right after high school. I thought I liked working on vehicles, and so I started doing that, and then realized, you know what, I like the building trades, and most of the individuals in my family were in building trades. And so I decided, I'm going to be the odd sheep out here, and I like working on machines, thinking about how they work. And so heating and cooling systems, everybody has them in their homes. I decided, you know what, that's something that's basically recession proof. And that's what I was thinking way back during high school. So that's how I started in the field, and just kind of grew rapidly just by having a desire to learn.
That's awesome. So so you're in you're not that far from me. You're like in the New Jersey area, correct?
Yeah. I'm at the very southern tip in Cape May County, New Jersey. And I taught at the county technical high school here for HVAC. I taught at night with the adults and during the daytime with the high school students. And somebody had challenged me to, they said if they knew a lot about construction, they would like to make some YouTube videos. They said, hey, why don't you make some YouTube videos? And it was completely out of my wheelhouse, but I just decided I would start doing it. And the thing was that I could make these little videos for my students and they could see them, like if there's a substitute or something like that. Inevitably, I would get sick from just working in a public school, but that's how I got started.
That's pretty awesome. So did you so has it always been teaching? Did you work for yourself? Like, do you have like your own company and do stuff, or is it all about the training and stuff now?
Yeah. So back then I had a construction, half carpentry, half HVAC, and I had that company for 16 years now. But I actually shut it down as of last year to try to focus on the educational company. So now we're really just trying to build out AC service tech and try to provide more educational resources to high schools and so CTE high schools, career tech ed high schools, and colleges and shops that are looking to train their technicians. And so we've been trying to build that out. But yeah, I did half carpentry, door window replacements, and then I was a Bryant dealer in Cape May County, and I would do change out, service, installations, and what happened was that while I was teaching, I always had a passion for teaching. I work with some of the kids in our church and stuff like that. I enjoyed being able to give them some type of, just be with them in life, if that makes sense. So, and I enjoyed instilling into them. And that's when I decided, maybe teaching's the best route. I pushed real hard to get a New Jersey state teaching license. And that was an ordeal in and of itself because during the application process, it didn't seem that they really looked favorably on self-employed people. They thought you work 20 hours a week. Well, inevitably, we're working 60, 80 hours a week. And they didn't want to give me that experience level or mod, whatever you want to call it. But I ended up going back to school and getting an associate's degree in order to then apply for my hours in the field. And then finally I got the HVACR teaching certificate and building maintenance teaching certificate and sheet metal teaching certificate for the state of New Jersey. So that's how I got started. But inevitably I was running my business. I was doing service at night and change outs on the weekend and sometimes at night, and teaching during the daytime. I taught 2 night school classes and I was making videos and trying to write a book, and I ended up getting burnt out. So a little too much, and family's most important.
Yeah.
So, you try.
And one thing I say about your videos is, I always repeat this, that, Mr. Jim Bergman made the comment that he said that you don't really know something till you have to teach it to somebody else, which I agree 100%. But I feel like some people are very knowledgeable and they're good teachers, but some people, just the way like they present it and how they say things. And I feel like your videos, the way that you say things, it makes it very easy to learn. So, and I feel like that's something you either have or you don't. Like, even like my guys say, when, we have like it's funny, we talk about your meetings and stuff. I mean, your videos and like our service meetings sometimes about different topics, and all of them say like watching his videos, it's just really easy to learn. Like, it's fluid. It all makes sense. It's, you know what I mean? And obviously that's had to come with time, as far as you were doing it. But that's awesome that you provide that value, because I feel like our younger, at least here in Maryland, I don't know about New Jersey, is, vocational schools are getting slim pickings. A lot of the programs are going away. And I feel like a lot of people are getting away from trade school. But if you go to a good trade school and you learn the right way, it can really set you up for a good path in this industry. Not saying you have to, but if done correctly, it can really set you up with the foundation you need to be successful in this industry,
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to see really anybody go in debt, and I want to see skills built into young people so that they don't have to struggle when they have a family, trying to be a good husband, a good father, or if you're, a wife, you're trying to do your best with your family, and there's all the stresses in life and, paying for a house or rent and bills and all that stuff. So for me, I want to try to get as many of these skills into these young people as possible so that they can support their families, their future families well. Like, that is the goal. That was the goal back when I was teaching in the high school. And I hope that's kind of the goal now. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, this is recession proof. I mean, it just got proved going through COVID that, I mean, yeah, business was a little rocky in the beginning because people just didn't know what the heck was going on. But ultimately, when it got hot, guess what? They still called the AC, man. They weren't going to sit in their house and be hot. It proved that we will always be needed. And, and I agree. I'm an advocate for the trades. Not that I think that kids should not go to college, but don't go to college just for the sake of saying you go to college. So many people go, like you said, they get in debt, they get some BS degree, and they come out just because they thought that's what they were supposed to do. When you have people in the trades, I mean, I have guys that work for me that are, they're in their 20s, and these guys make $100,000+ a year. They're just good guys that want to work. And we've had a few of them where they're like, I make more than my dad does. They're like, I don't know what to do with this. So we've had to give them like financial lessons, so that they set themselves up to be successful. And that's what I want to see,
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, that is the whole point. Being able to rely on the skills you have, even to fix your own problems at your own house, and be able to work in the field. So one of the things I used to tell the high school students was, not only do you have the benefit of potentially making a fairly high hourly rate or, contract price, or potentially having your own business because of the skills that you have, but also a lot of these things like HVAC has to do a lot with carpentry and plumbing and electric. And so you end up getting these skills to be able to fix things in your own house, where you're not having to pay somebody $300 an hour to fix your roof or shingles or whatever it may be. It's all related. And so then I would always tell the students, the biggest thing then is your character. Do people trust you? Because your character will outweigh your skill sets as far as you getting jobs and, moving up the ladder.
Yeah, I mean, and something little like being able to change an electrical outlet at my house, change the guts in a toilet, because being mechanically inclined and knowing that if you have to call a plumber or electrician to do that, like, that's expensive. And learning the skills to know to do that in your own house, that can pay off in the long run. And my boys, like, I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and my sons, I try to teach them those little things. And I'm like, whether they're like, well, I'm not necessarily going to do what you do, Dad. I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to do what I do, but I still want you to know these things. So you just have that concept when you get your own household, and you don't got to pay an electrician, $400 to come change an outlet because you don't know how to do it. Those little simple things.
Yeah.
But before we'll get off this topic, I would love to know, when you were still teaching, like, in the schools, how are the kids' attitudes like towards the trades? I mean, was it receptive, the kids that you were dealing with? Or I feel like now people see like, oh, that plumber with his butt crack hanging out, or those guys doing this. They don't realize that some of those guys make a good bit of money.
Well, you have probably 14, 15-year-olds coming into your classroom, and they don't really know much about just life yet. So you're trying to instill what hourly rates are, and you see their future kind of before they do. And so you're just trying to get the skill sets down into them. So yeah, they were receptive, because guess what? Any young person, I don't care if it's college age or, 25 or whatever it may be, 14, 18, they all want to have that sense of accomplishment. And so as you gain a skill set, they would get that, they would receive that and know, hey, I can do this. So a lot of people may not have come from a household that, like yours, or like mine, they don't come from a household that may have trades already involved. And so they just need somebody to unlock that. They may have the gift for it, but they've never seen the tools yet. And so the biggest gift that you can give them is the awareness of all the tools. And one of the greatest privileges that I have nowadays is to talk to new teachers that may be struggling. It's like their first year teaching, and they're overwhelmed because they're worried about that they're not getting all of this crazy knowledge into their students. But I remind them, or just try to encourage them, you were hired for a reason. And the thing is, you know about your area, and you know what's needed in the area, and you can give those students the skill sets. sheet metal or electrical and the gas piping or, whatever it may be, all of those fundamental things are going to allow that graduate to grow in like wherever they're hired at real quickly. And then the knowledge is the second tier. That's going to help them grow even faster. But if they come in with knowledge and no skill sets, it's not really worth that much because you're not making the company any money on the job. So
Yeah, no, that's true. Or you get the people that have, some of the skill set, but they don't have the work ethic. And I always say this, like, you can teach somebody HVAC. You can't teach them to not be a shitbag. You know what I mean? Like, if a person doesn't have that, like, morals about them or to work hard and things like that, you can't teach a person. That's something they either grow up with or they don't. Because some of the people that I've found that have been the best have been some younger kids that were just really good people. We've met them through church or whatever it was, and we've taught them the industry, and they're rock stars. Like they listen, they want to learn, they're very open, and they take everything that you say in, and they've been awesome. It's been a great risk for us.
yeah, like I said, you could have somebody coming out with a bunch of skills or maybe grew up with a bunch of skills, but it's all about that work ethic. And this is one thing that I mention about with teachers and stuff. We just published an article on our website with me and Ty Branneman. And I think one of his quotes was that you can't make a student learn, but you are inspiring them to want to learn. And so by you, with your company, I'm sure they're looking at you and saying he's doing the things that I would like to do in the future, or, I would like to be like that, and so that's inspiring them to want to grow and move on. All those young people that you're hiring that maybe don't have those skill sets, their personality and their honesty and the hard work ethic, that's what matters. And then you can teach them everything.
Yeah, for sure. And watching your videos as well, because it's part of our meetings. I would love to know your opinion on, so when you hear people say, when it comes to like lower SEER equipment, 14, 16 SEER versus the high end stuff. And I know what I say to people when people say, oh, going higher than 16 SEER is a waste of money. It doesn't do anything. Like, how do you feel about the different, like, what is your opinion based on the different SEERs, like, and stuff like that? And as far as how people explain that, saying it's a waste of money.
Well, if you can explain the payback, the other thing is, even if you have a larger coil surface area, like in my area, we live by the ocean. So just because you have a higher SEER, that may not help if you don't have a good coating on your coil, because it's just going to erode, or you're going to have all of that salt corrosion on there that's going to negate the energy transfer. And so there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. I don't think you can really look at something and say, don't do this or don't do that. I think you just need to know your market and know that you're doing what you believe is best for your customers. You could also have other outlooks that, you may be somebody that is saying, I want to see more energy efficient installations. And so you're kind of not pushing, but you're trying to push what you feel is the more higher efficiency units. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't even mean that it comes with a high price tag. It may also come with when you are selling equipment, maybe you might make some energy recommendations on their building so that you can install a lower size, a lower BTU per hour capacity system. And all they have to do is, a couple little things. So if you can give them some recommendations, it's going to be helpful. It's the same thing like when you go to a service call, and instead of selling them a new piece of equipment, you're able to fix it. You gain their trust by helping them in their journey. It's looked upon favorably by the customer.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's how I feel. Like I'm just there. Like when I was a technician, I'd go out to fix it. If it is one of those old ones, I give them their options, and if replacement's going to be what they want to do, I present all of them. If they choose 14 SEER, then hey, that's their opinion. I'm there to just give them their options, and then they pick what they want to do. And I feel like some people, it's too much where they think with their own wallet, or it's out of ignorance, where they just don't know. We're the professionals. We tell the customer about each individual product, and they choose. I do like, high-end equipment. I put it in my house, but I tell people it's for the comfort side of it. But I do think that it's not the end all be all. Like people go around and tell guys like, "Oh, these variable speed motors, they're gonna fix all your ductwork issues." No, they're not. That's not how that's gonna work. Because we've run into a lot here, and I'm pretty sure since we're not that far away, it's the same. A lot of houses, older houses here, where just the ductwork was designed for heat load. It wasn't designed for air conditioning, and we find a lot of times things are like way oversized. And I'm like, hey, you have a 3.5 ton, system in this house, and you need like a 2.5 ton. Like it's you're way off. Do you guys see that a lot in your area?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can never just replace with like, even when you're replacing parts, you don't replace parts with like. You got to try to determine what was supposed to be there. It could be a capacitor size or whatever it may be, a current load on a contactor, an FLA on the contactor may have been the wrong size, and that's why the contacts pitted, just because it didn't have enough magnetic force to really suck in the contacts well. And so you really need to look at the building as a whole and try to do your best for the customer. And like you said, you're going to have to look at the ductwork. You can't just assume. You have to look at all the supply runs, look at the trunk, and try to size that, and make sure that your equipment is matching, and try to do the best thing you can.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've had some people where they've been those internet shoppers where they've wanted like, I want that Carrier, inverter system. I want that green speed. Okay, great. That's awesome that you want that, but their ductwork will be atrocious. And I'm like, hey, I'm not going to sell you this. Like, I won't be able to sleep at night because if I sell you this, I know it's not going to do what it's supposed to be. And I've lost jobs over it, but you know what? That's okay with me because I don't want to put that in knowing that it's never going to do what it's supposed to because the ductwork isn't sized properly, or, and yes, those people end up calling you back and saying, oh, hey, you were right, but I get no satisfaction out of that. You know what I mean? So now there's people got to spend all this money to now, replace something or whatever it is, and that stinks. But and I always tell the guys another thing is, compressors don't die, they're murdered. So if a compressor die, like we had quite a few like so we put in Carrier Lennox and some Goodman stuff. And the reason I like some of the Goodman things is because of the warranty. Like if somebody gets 16 SEER and above, that we can give them a 10-year parts and labor warranty at no extra cost to them. It's the deal we have worked out. And to me, I'm not a huge...
Good.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I'd have fought somebody if you told me Carrier wasn't the best. Now, I've definitely, as I've gotten older, it's definitely... Do I think there's some brands out there that are, but most of them, as long as they're installed correctly, they're going to do what they're designed to do. But we've had some compressor issues, and guys are like, "Oh, I'm like, once we put that new one in, like we have to start checking things to figure out like something took that compressor out. Just like every job you go out to and the pressures are off, it's a TXV. That's the most misdiagnosed part. So when you break it down to somebody, like say you're the service manager and somebody calls you and, oh, I have a high suction. I mean, a low suction and a high head pressure. I'm trying to give it gas. It's doing nothing. It's the TXV. Like, how would you explain like the TXV operation to them? Because I know you explain it way better than me.
So first, I tell them we don't really look at pressures. We look at temperatures. So what I need, just tell me on the phone. I need the sat temp. I need the sat temp on the high side and the low side. I need superheat, subcooling. And while you're at it, why don't you give me a delta T? And also, is that coil already frozen or is it thawed? And so I want those parameters first. And if you give me those parameters, then I also tell them, you're not going to add refrigerant. You can determine what the problem is basically immediately if you know how to read superheat and subcooling. And so that's, if you have high superheat and then high subcooling or normal subcooling, then yeah, it might be a liquid line restriction problem. And then the next thing is, well, is it the filter dryer? Is it the strainer in front of the TXV, or is it the TXV itself? And what I found is that if you take the bulb off, like if it's a TXV that has the copper on the head and it's steel, like a steel head, not a stainless steel head, but then it has copper tube on top of that, those are the ones that used to leak a lot or still do leak,
Yeah.
because they're old. and they've lost the opening pressure to the TXV. And so if you put that in a cup of hot water, and then all of a sudden you see that your superheat lowers, well, some people think, well, the TXV is now doing its job properly. But the reality is that that bulb in the top of the head, which is the opening force on the inside of the TXV, it's lost some of its charge, not all of its charge. And usually that's going to be the case. Usually for a customer, it's going to gradually get worse. It's not going to immediately just fail when it's a bad TXV. It's usually you lose a charge a little bit at a time, unless there's rubbing on that capillary tube, and then it just goes. But if you put that bulb in hot water and then all of a sudden your suction pressure rises, your superheat lowers, and your subcooling stays the same or drops 1 or 2 degrees or something like that, then you know that that's a bad TXV. You don't have to worry about any other thing in there. You know that that's the issue. And so you just need to replace that. But in reference to your question, which I still haven't answered. No, so you have your you have your spring pressure on the bottom, and then you have and that's your closing force on the inside. So basically you have 3 pressures total. You have your spring pressure and your external equalization pressure. That's your closing force, and that goes against your opening force, which is your bulb pressure. And so your external equalization pressure, which is one of your closing forces, is attached onto the suction line right near the bulb. And then there's that argument, should that be before or downstream of the bulb or before the bulb? I've found that it doesn't really matter, and manufacturers put it on both sides. But you can, the norm, everybody would say, would be to put the external equalization line downstream of the bulb. Anyway, so the spring pressure basically is what you need to think about, is that spring pressure as you have your opening force and it's compressing the spring exerts more force. And so that's something that you just need to think about. It's going to hold the whole opening in equilibrium. So as there's more of a heat load in the building and you have hot air crossing over that coil, and that's what's going to raise the pressure and raise the temperature of the refrigerant. As that's happening, the bulb is noticing that, and the bulb is warming, and it's applying more pressure downwards on the head of the TXV. The opening size inside is going to get a little bit larger. And so it's going to allow more refrigerant through into the coil in order to absorb that extra heat load. And that could be, humidity and just heat from the air. And so anytime I'm trying to explain stuff, I try to explain it just in general terminology, like layman's terms. But I hope that.
Yeah, no, that
okay?
was great. That was great. And I that's what I'm saying. The way you explain things, it makes it easy to understand, because I feel like some people, very, very smart people, they explain it, but it's like they're reading the Chinese manual, So when somebody explains it, it makes it easy to understand. Like, and like explaining to somebody the difference between like an EEV, and I'm like, well, the electronic valve is doing the same thing as a TXV. It's just, the only difference is it's got the electrical connectors that it's using the pressure on the end. It has electricity that's pushing it up and down, correct?
Yeah, so you have 12-volt pulses. You have 4 coils, essentially. It looks like 2 coils, but it's actually 4, and you have 1 or 2 common wires. And basically, you have your outdoor control board, circuit board, that's referred to as the PCB, printed circuit board. Real fancy, right? That's the brain. That's the brains on a inverter system. And so basically, that PCB is taking a bunch of temperature inputs across the system. Like there's probably like 5 temperature inputs on a single zone inverter system. Anyway, it's designed, the PCB board, that PCB is designed to make decisions for operation. And so what's going to do is it's going to send 12-volt pulses through those coils, and it's going to turn a permanent magnet on the inside of the EEV. The permanent magnet is attached to a needle, and there's also threads. And so as that permanent magnet turns on the inside, as the rotating magnetic field is making it turn, the needle will go up or down the threads, and the end of the needle is either down inside the hole, or it's coming up out of the hole and making the hole size, essentially, for the refrigerant to go through larger or smaller. And so the EEV isn't making any decisions itself. It's not operated by pressures. It's just 12-volt signals from that PCB.
That's what I thought. So I always understood how it worked, but I will say that that's one thing that when I would explain it to somebody else, I felt like I was mumbling a little bit, that I wasn't explaining it properly. But that makes perfect sense. Um, I would love to know, like, and to be honest, I was curious about this with all the new refrigerant stuff coming out, like the A2Ls and stuff like that. I guess before we get into it, what is your opinion on that? Like, how do you feel about, like, I know people are like, great, just what we need. We don't have the licensing now is kind of a joke, and now we have people that are going to be putting this stuff in people's homes and yada yada yada. How do you feel about the new refrigerants that are going to be coming out?
R32 has been used over in Europe for almost 20 years, and it's a single component refrigerant. It's very easy. You can it'd be like the same thing as working with R22, except a higher pressure, and so that would be great.
Yeah, well, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say that.
No, I was
That's,
gonna,
go ahead, you. Okay, sorry.
my fault. R454B, that's that's a blend, and so you just got to remember to just turn your bottle upside down, when you're charging. And a lot of times, if it's an inverter system, you're charging by weight anyway, and then you're just going to be using bubble and dew, and so it's just slightly different, but it's not that big of a deal compared to what we have been working with, because we already work with blends anyway. And we have Blue On, we have several different R22 retrofit ones, but Blue On's fantastic, but we already are working with those blends, and it's really not that much different for us as technicians working with those versus the other ones. In fact, I think some of the manufacturers, in order to get their A2L rating on some of the tools, they might not have even had to change that much on them. Some systems, will have an additional sensor or two. They're going to limit potentially the charges. But I think the whole thing was that they were trying to get down when I say they, I'm thinking maybe this is just a guess, the EPA, they're trying to get down below 500 with the GWP, that global warming potential, and R32 just wasn't there. I think it's, I think it's 675. I could be wrong. But anyway, it's just a slightly above 500. But then you have R410A, it's in the 2000s for the global warming potential, because it has 50% R125 and 50% R32. And it's just that mix makes it not be an A2L. It's an A1 then. But the global warming potential is just real high. That was the only thing. It's like, why haven't we accepted R32 earlier? It's kind of a little crazy, but.
Yeah, and I do feel like as an industry that, like, we're far, but I feel like we should be farther ahead than we are. Like it felt like the automotive industry would make like a jump, and then like we would be sniffing their butts, like be like right behind them. I do feel like we should be further along, and I guess somebody who's a teacher, what do you say to those technicians out there that all I ever hear in these different groups is, oh, R32 is flammable and blah blah blah. What do you? I would love to hear what you say to those people about that even being an issue and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, law cases and stuff like that are fairly similar in other countries. United States is a little bit more whatever law happy, sue happy, whatever. But you don't hear that many cases occurring due to R32 use overseas, and it's all over. Using all of it for many, many, many years. And so, if there's any type of case study that should be thought about, I mean, it's right in our face. It's been there it's just it's easier to work with than even R410A. But I just don't see there being that much of a big deal. But we're going to just I mean, the reality is it doesn't matter what we think anyway, because it's we're going to have to start using it anyway. And now what's happened here in the United States is we kind of frog leaped over R32. So it might actually be not used that much, and they might just go right over to all the blends, and then they're going, into the HFOs and then going further that way, actually, instead of spending much time even on R32 to begin with. So I don't know. I'm eager to see what happens. Honestly, I don't have any real concrete answers on it or anything like that. I kind of go with the flow, and when procedures need to be made, I just want to try to give those step-by-step procedures, because that's what the technicians want to see. They don't want to just hear about the theory. They want to know how to do the job.
Yeah, no, exactly, and I agree. Like they've been using it so long in other places that it's not like we're gonna have flamethrowers going in people's house. I feel like it's whenever there's a change, just like when we went from 22 to 410. Oh my God, these pressures are so high. What are we doing? Blah blah blah. It's just something new comes on and people get scared of it. It just takes a little education. I know people are supposed to go back and get a new EPA certification. I'm pretty sure for the A2L stuff. It's not under the old one, right? The other license.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think they're making them go back yet. I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
heard that yet. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong.
Oh yeah. I don't.
But
Wow. I thought I heard that. I could be because I know. Well, let me ask you this. Like
it might be.
like I'm sorry. What was that?
No, I was saying they could do anything. They can make you go and do, whatever if you need to. But what I would say to anybody that is afraid of the change, I would just say that the thing is, it's going to make you more valuable anyway. So, um, you can get stuck in just kind of wanting to do the same thing over for years and years. But if you can learn to do more, and you're one of those, say, if we needed to get recertified, there's not going to be as many people being recertified as there are technically certified. And so, it's for flammable for A3 refrigerants like propane, that's different, but A2L refrigerants aren't, um, it's not that big of a change compared to what we have been doing. But Jason Orsbutt, you could listen to a lot of his stuff, and I think he even wrote a book on the A2L refrigerant. So anybody that's interested in looking at that, can check that out over there at ESCO in order to get more information on it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, and to be honest, I'm curious, and and I don't. It's gonna be sound like a dumb question, but I'll be honest. I really don't know. Like even here on like Yellow Jacket, when they say like, "Oh, our new pumps are A2L certified," what does that mean? I mean, does it? I mean, what does that mean? If a, I mean, to me, a vacuum pump is a vacuum pump. Like being A2L certified, like what would change in? Like why would it matter? I don't understand.
I don't have all the answers for that one, but I am seeing that some of the tool manufacturers, they just have to provide other testing or go through testing in order to get that certification. And in some cases, some things already don't even have to be changed. It's just making sure that this slightly flammable nature is. Uh, you're not putting the technician at risk, and you're just going through a different safety. I honestly couldn't tell you exactly what they're doing in reference to that as far as testing to get that certification. All I can say is that some tool manufacturers their tools are already good enough, and they already have that stamp. Then didn't have to make any changes. They just had to do the testing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When I heard that, I was just a little curious. I see some people in the are saying like non-sparking motors and stuff like that. I guess that would make a big deal. Um, so I
Well,
know
that's
now. Go ahead.
no. I was going to say, sorry. That's the brushless DC motors. They're just making. I mean, we have this stuff already. It's just a brushless DC motor instead of a brushed DC motor that would spark. But yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's good. I was gonna say for you now with the website, like you even have like a series of tests and everything, right? Where somebody can go through like a course and then test themselves at the end. Is that like part of a is that just on the website? Is that like a membership perk? How does all that work?
So everything on the website, everything on the website's free. We don't have a membership thing. I don't love that, to restrict it. I want more. I want things as possible to be at a lower cost so that it gets out to everybody. And the things on the website, like the articles, we put out one article a week. We try to do some podcasts here and there, answering questions. I got to this point where I couldn't keep up with all the questions coming in from YouTube and the emails and everything like that. And I am trying to focus my question answering with the patrons. We have a crowd, Patreon crowdfunding site for any new videos. But in reference to the website, I believe there's 10 quizzes there. There are 10 question quizzes on different topics. And so you can test your knowledge. And then if you don't know, the answers, some of those have videos associated with them. Now, in reference to our book, let me back up. The quizzes get automatically graded, and you'll be able to see what answers you get wrong. So it's not like you're in the dark. You're not just going to get an 80% and walk away and that's it. You'll know what answers you got wrong, and then you can see the answers, and then you can see the videos in order to know which video you want to watch. But anyway, in reference to our book, we have that refrigerant charging and service procedures for air conditioning book, and that's 229 pages. That's basically everything that I want technicians to know about single speed units, not inverter systems, but we're working on another book right now. And that's the big thing with the busyness and trying to balance everything. But with that book, that's everything, all the procedures that I want technicians to know in reference to, say, R22 systems, R410A systems. You're talking about preparing a system for refrigerant, leak checking, vacuuming, standing vacuum tests, wheel blowout procedure. If there's a problem with pulling a vacuum, your micron gauge is jumping around. We go over just breaking the vacuum with the refrigerant from the bottle and from the system, checking the charging, different tool use, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, rules of thumb, and why you should use. So we go over some of the old rules of thumb that a technician might hear of and why maybe you shouldn't use that, and then relying on superheat, subcooling, and the sat temps, in order to do a diagnosis. But with that book, we also made a 1,000-question workbook, and that has a self-study answer key, so you can test yourself, and so you can read the book. We have 125 videos that correlate to certain page numbers of the book. That's at the website at acservicetech.com/videos. There's a 125 video list that correlates, like I said, to each one of those certain pages in the book. So then you do one chapter, and then you can go into the 1,000-question workbook, which it sounds overwhelming, but the reality is, if you just take it one step at a time, you can get through it, and you'll know everything that I want you to know. There's literally all the EPA stuff integrated into that book. There's all of this stuff. There's not fluff. I don't like fluff. These are the real things. And if you know all of these steps and know all these procedures, these sequences, it's not just A, B, C, D. It's, sequences and fill in the blanks. And we did 5 different types of questioning, because I want people to grow. I want people to know these things. I know it's going to make them more valuable. So that is available in English and in Spanish. So we have, we went through a painstaking process to make sure that the Spanish translation of our book and the Spanish translation of the workbook was the Spanish spoken in America. And so, for everybody that's wanting to try to grow, that maybe English is a second language, so there you have a way to kind of move up the ladder. If you're hungry to learn, I don't want anything to be in your way. And the reality is, when I started in the field, the best advice that I was given was, if you can't solve a problem, you're on a service call, go out to the middle of the street and clear your head for a second, then come back in and keep trying. There was no resources. There was no internet. There was no anything. And so you just had to try. You had to read manuals. This is a big thing that's taken for granted. Read the installation manual, read the service manual. And so if somebody's hungry to grow, they're going to become valuable in this trade. It's just a matter of determining, are they going to let somebody else tell them that they're not valuable? How hungry are they really? Is the company investing in them? Because they have to check themselves and say, am I working hard enough for them to invest in me? But you can do all this work yourself, reading and watching videos at night. The only reason that I have that skill set of trying to break something down into a layman's terminology, because I was afraid that I was going to tell my students something wrong. And I stayed at night and tried to do the tests like myself and tried to prove what was passed down to me from another technician. Am I even telling them what's right? And then I go to try to answer questions on YouTube. We got to 14,000 questions. And I had to check myself, because people would call me out and say, hey, that's not quite said right. You might want to think about this. Well, I've taken all that into consideration. If you can't take criticism and try to learn from it, you can't just block that stuff. You have to be open and be willing to hear somebody. Now, you might say, what, that person's complaining or something like that. But I take that to be that they just had a bad day. But for the most part, you want to be open. If somebody says something to you, especially if it's another person, 2 people say it, or even 3, it's like, oh man, you better pay attention. There's something that you could learn here. And so
Yeah.
I've tried to absorb as much of that as I could to try to break bad habits, how I'm talking, saying, I had this terrible tick that I used to say, all right, all the time. All right, all right, all right, all right. It was terrible. People still bust my chops about it. It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah. I
Because
still do the sometimes, and I got to cut them out when I edit. And I feel like I've gotten better. At the beginning, it was really bad, but we're growing as we get going. But like I tell people, I'm an HVAC guy. I'm not a disc jockey. This is just something that I do on the side to try to help. People, how do they get your book? Is it on your website? Is that the only place, like Amazon? How do they get it?
yeah, so what's crazy is when I was writing that book, I thought if I could sell 4 books a day, that would be awesome. And now it's actually the number 1 best-selling HVAC book on Amazon. So which is absolutely crazy. But yeah, so it's something to be proud of, and then realizing that many students and colleges are using it and high schools are using it, and the person that wants to change out from being in the maintenance field to HVAC are using it, and I'm getting emails coming in saying it's inspired them to get the EPA 608 license. It's like they're wanting to learn, they're doing experiments, and they're trying to grow, and that is awesome. But yeah, we have it on Amazon, and we have the workbook on Amazon. We also have quick reference cards for technicians. They could throw these quick reference cards right in their service bag. They're for troubleshooting. So the things that we were talking about, liquid line restriction, hey, the coil is frozen. You walk up to it and you see a low sat temp. Is it a low refrigerant charge? Is it liquid line restriction, or is it low indoor airflow? And you should be able to tell that right away based on your readings. And you can tell if it's low on refrigerant immediately without even having to defrost the coil. And so you can just check to see, what the subcooling is. If the subcooling is still high and you have a frozen coil, well, if it's fully frozen, it's most likely an airflow problem. But if you have like the bottom part of the coil is frozen, it's most likely a liquid line restriction problem. But you can determine all this stuff though with the superheat, subcooling, and sat temps. But there's a chart that we have that we made so that they can basically just look at those parameters and determine what that problem is, if it's a contaminated refrigerant charge or whatever. And so that's available. So all those resources are available on Amazon and on our website. We also made refrigeration cycle we have PowerPoints at our website for teachers, but also we have posters that we made of the refrigeration cycle. That what's awesome is some of those are hanging in schools across the country. A lot of them are actually hanging, and some of the teachers are laminating them and putting them on their students' desks, or they're putting them on the systems that they're checking the charge on. Because my goal is, what I want people to do is when they're checking the refrigerant charge, I want them to imagine the refrigeration cycle in their head. And that's why we put these refrigeration cycles over an air conditioning system, a heat pump in air conditioning, a heat pump in heating mode, a mini split in heating mode, a mini split in air conditioning mode, a walk-in box, because I want them to picture that in their mind while they're reading their sat temps and line temps and determining superheat, subcooling. Like they can see, you can see what's happening in the system, and you can troubleshoot real quick. It's not just a matter of determining if you're low on refrigerant or correctly charged or overcharged. You need to be able to diagnose it quickly. Don't add refrigerant to diagnose it.
No, I agree. That makes perfect sense. I'm gonna order the book and everything before we get done, because I think I looked at it and I want to get it for our guys, our service techs. How do I get, as far as like the presentations for like teachers and like those posters and stuff, where do you get that kind of stuff from? Because I'd love to put it up in my our classroom we have at the office. I think that would be cool resources to have on the wall.
Yeah, so that's all available at our website at acservicetech.com/store. And so the PowerPoints are immediate downloads. You can also buy the ebook there. It's immediate download. You could also go to Google Play or Apple Bookstore and get the ebook. We also have the paper versions available at the website or on Amazon. And we ship them out real quickly. And so we actually we have a whole shop here, basically, is AC Service Tech. And we have a distribution coordinator. Patty does a fantastic job, and Naomi's doing a fantastic job as well. And they're doing shipments and contacting schools, or providing custom quotes for schools they want to buy 10 or 20. or 30 or whatever it may be. And so we provide custom quotes for that stuff, and try to get everybody the resources that we can. The biggest problem we have is the time it takes to create a resource. People want to see or want to have one on like electrical and furnaces. And I feel it, I can see it. It's just getting it out. We're making all these images in this new book. It just takes a long, long time. And you're trying to just make sure that every single word that you're saying is absolutely correct. Like, you don't want to lead anybody in any wrong direction. And so you're just trying to get it all out there, and it just takes time, and trying to get it in a sequential manner where it's easy to download in your mind, because that's extremely important. There's nothing worse than just reading a bunch of words and it's like, wow, it's too technical. I don't understand it. It's way over my head or whatever. And it should be at a level where a 15-year-old kid can understand what's going on, but also have nuggets in there for the technician that's been in the field for 30 years. That's like, oh, that's a tip I didn't know. Oh, that's a trick. Oh, I had no idea. And that's going to save me time. And so there should be something in there for everybody. And that's what we're trying to do. So yeah, over at acservicetech.com, you can check that stuff out there.
That's awesome. And I could only imagine writing a book like that, and the wording and how you present it. I can only imagine how hard that is. I know we're getting close on time. I want to ask you a few questions towards the end. One, when you first started that YouTube channel, did you ever think that you would be where you are now?
Absolutely not. And in fact, with life, it's like every 2 years. So over the last like 10, 15 years, it's kind of one of these things where if you were to go 2 years in the future and then look back at where you are, where you are now and where you were or whatever, you'd think that you'd say that that's crazy. There's no way. And so, no, absolutely not. And from the comments on YouTube, that's what encouraged me. And from my students at school, that's what encouraged me to push on, because there was no traction when I was making those videos in the beginning. For the first 4 or 5 months, I was just pushing videos out, like, trying to get them out, because I wanted to get them out in a way where I'm like, all right, that's done. I can move on to the next topic. Okay, I got that out, in what I felt was at least a clear manner where somebody could understand it. And then I could move on. But then it was like 6 months down the road is when things started taking off. And then I got to see how much people appreciated those videos. And so that's from then on, it kind of encouraged me to just keep going. So I appreciate all those comments that come in. And sometimes, I can't answer all the questions, but I can say that even if I don't respond, like, I'm reading them and kind of just keeping a pulse. And I do try to answer. It's just overwhelming. But it really encourages me to keep going. And then we get emails that come in from people's stories of how they've grown up in their company and now they're a foreman, and they feel like, it's because of the videos or because of the written books or the resources. And the other thing is, though, some people will say, oh, I sat in a lecture for 5 hours or whatever. I come home, I watch a 5-minute video, and now I understand. And I remind them, like, that teacher's been planting that seed in them for weeks. You know what I'm saying? This is just what's brought it together. And now they're finally understanding it, but it's, that in the classroom where they're getting all that hands-on skill, like, you got to have hands-on skill and knowledge. You got to have it mixed. So hands-on skill, knowledge, hands-on skill, knowledge, hands-on skill, knowledge. You can't just feed somebody knowledge because nobody cares. You got to develop the question in their mind. How can I complete this procedure? How can I complete this goal? And then they learn the knowledge stuff. It's like, I'm not even a writer. I don't like writing. I'm a technician. I am a technician, and I like teaching. That's it. And so these other things, I want to get them out to people, and whatever is the thing, it's in my way. And so, if it takes me doing videos, to get it out to them, then I will do that thing. It's not like that's what I'm good at. You know what I mean? I luckily I've been able to bring other people aboard in the journey because of things like the book and the book doing well, and the Patreon, and just all of that stuff. Like, I've been able to bring a friend of mine on who is a service technician at another company, and he's my technology guy. He helps me do everything. He's set up for tonight. There's too many things going on to try to tackle things all by yourself. You need people around you to help and support you and allow you to do what you feel you're gifted at, and then allow them to be able to do what they're gifted at. And the whole goal is, that We can provide these resources for people to grow. We have contacts. People are writing to us from prison because they're learning HVAC in prison. You know what I mean? Like we're mailing the book to like a parent or a relative. They're unbinding the book and they're taking the book in to them. There's like inmates that are teaching HVAC to other inmates and stuff. Like it's crazy, the whole thing, because you're giving skills to people that want to be valuable, and valued, and the more they learn, the more valuable you are. And that's from a young person all the way to an adult. The more skills you have, the more confidence you have, and the more ability you have to provide for your family or your future family. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I do think that, with the way the schools, and sometimes now we're sending people out that they're not confident. They get just enough to get by, and that leads to having issues because then they never really have a chance to become confident because they're thrown into the mix too soon, too early. But that's one thing I say at the end of every podcast, Craig, is if you don't know something now, there's no reason for you to keep saying, I don't know, because there's so many resources out there for you to know, to figure it out, like your channel, other channels, podcasts, books, whatever it may be. I mean, I didn't know how to podcast. I knew nothing about video editing. I watched YouTube videos. I taught myself how to do it. I mean, HVAC, when I first left my dad and I would call him on like every call that I went to when I was doing like commercial stuff. And the best thing he ever did is he said, hey, are you going to split your paycheck with me at the end of the week? He's like, you call me after work. He's like, you need to figure it out. And he's hung up the phone. I stuck my nose in the books. I started learning, and I still try to get better. I don't know everything. And one thing I realized by me helping other people, makes me better, being able to explain it to somebody else and stuff like that. And like I said, even like when I was talking about the EEV, I know how it works, but sometimes I don't know how to explain it to somebody else. And I'm still always constantly learning, trying to do that. And, I will say what you do, man, like, thank you for what you do for the industry and what you give back, because it is appreciative, and there's nobody that I've ever talked to that's ever had one bad thing to say. It's always been, his videos are awesome. Like, I've learned so much from AC Service Tech. I've learned so much from Craig and all that kind of stuff. So I know what you're doing is impacting tons of people, and people like you are what led me to do this. Do I think I'm making some huge technical impact like you are? Probably not, but even just talking about different topics and something that can help a person communicate or whatever it is, just trying to give back to an industry that's been so good to me, that's my whole goal. And I think that's awesome what you do. And that's why I loved having you on here, because you were somebody that I would watch your channel, so it's really cool.
Yeah, it's going out to some of these events and things. You get to see people that I feel the same way, because I would meet people that I'm like, I've been watching you. I used your videos in the classroom or whatever, or you inspired me to do this, or I learned something from your videos, and that's really cool. And so, no, I appreciate everything that you're doing, and I appreciate you having me on and being so, I don't know, man, like welcoming and nice and stuff. I really appreciate it. So thank you for what you do. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get that stuff for the classroom, and I want to get your book. Actually, if people, I'll say it right now while he's on here. If everybody comments, I'll give this thing like 2 weeks. If they comment AC Service Tech in here, I'll pick someone in 2 weeks, and then I'll pick a random comment, and then I'll buy one of the books or whatever, and I'll pick a winner to send it out to, so somebody can have it. I see one of my guys is in here, so I know he's gonna want it. Because he'll be sitting in the office and watching. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He'll pick it up, and I'm like, "Oh, he's watching AC Service Tech." I'm like, "All right, cool, good for you." Mo, he's in here, so he Craig is freaking awesome, man. I know he watches your videos every day. Just do it in your own time, man. I can't pay you to watch Craig.
Hey, one thing is, you're asking me all these technical questions. We're all learning. I mean, literally, we are all learning every day. And so nobody can really think that somebody else has all the answers for something. It's only like you have answers for the things that you might have like just been working on. And that's kind of it. I forget things. I have to watch my own videos. I can't remember. I don't have a large brain. You know what I mean? Like, I literally have to go back and watch. Like, I spent a lot of time trying to figure this thing out before, and I can't remember all of the ins and outs. I have to like go reread stuff. So don't think that anybody is above it. Things come very hard to me. I have to just try very hard, and that's it. You know what I mean? And so we're all learning. Just keep learning, everybody. So yeah.
Yeah. I've always been where I've always been able to figure something out. If I'm there, maybe somebody else can figure it out faster, but I'll figure out at some point. I just want to get to the point where I can explain it to other people better so it makes sense. Like, the whatchamacallit goes in the thingamabob, you know what I mean? I just want to be able to get that across to people, especially in my position now, running a company and other people looking to me for those answers. I want to make sure that I can explain it to them in a way that makes sense. So that's why I keep trying to get better. I know I can always go out on the job and I'll fix it, but I can't do that for every job. I got to teach them how to fix it. So it's trying to learn the tools to be able to do that is where I'm trying to get to now. And, watching things like that, or just how I explain something and things like that. It's, yeah, I never ever stop learning. I can't ever stop learning. So, I guess before we close this out, I wanted to ask you, so out of the thousands of questions and stuff that you get, what would you say is the number one question that you get asked? or happens the most?
What pressure does our 410A run at?
Really? That's
yeah. Like what should it be at? It's a lot of that type of stuff. But no, there's a lot of questions, because I see people that have been asking questions for 5 years. I recognize them right away, 6 years, whatever, and so that just because I do have a mix of everybody asking questions, but there's some pretty high end questions that come in that challenge me, that really like make me think about, just with vacuums. And that's why I end up using, on a 2-port system, I use 3 valve core removal tools, because this is the way I do it is I'm thinking anybody that is using the vacuum method or the procedure, you don't know which vacuum gauge they have. So one may be more susceptible to oil than another one. And so what I do right before I break the vacuum with the bottle or from the system is I'll take that third valve core removal tool, and I'll turn that to the off position to protect the vacuum gauge from getting any oil in it. I rarely have to clean that sensor because it never gets contaminated. Whereas some people have to clean it every single time they use it. So I get vacuum questions because people get frustrated about it's not holding a vacuum, it's not pulling a vacuum. They don't understand how the vacuum works. And so I put out a video. I think it was 40 vacuum tips. I put one out back when that was 15 vacuum tips. I think I just put one out that was 40 vacuum tips for technicians, so that they could alleviate the troubles or the frustrations that they have in their minds. I don't know about you, but early on, that was a big thing for me. I'm going to a job site and I'm like, I hope the vacuum works. I hope it holds. You know what I mean? Like, because it could be because you're pulling it through a manifold or something like that, and then your manifold starts leaking, and it's just a frustration. Where is my vacuum leak at? Because I did the pressure test and I was holding pressure. What's the problem? And so there's just a lot of questions. The vacuum is one of them, but they've been pretty much on topic to the video lately. Honestly, for the past several months, I think they've been really targeted in onto the videos. Like we did one on condensate traps and measuring the cubic feet per minute being lost out of a furnace and a coil, like a positive pressure system. Or if you put a trap there, you got to clean it out because it could overflow, and then you have water coming down inside of the whole furnace and stuff. I wanted to show people how much airflow is being lost, and just to think about it. If it's getting lost in the house, is it that big of a deal? But if you're piping it outside, like you are losing it outside, you have an air exchange with the house. But everybody's been pretty much on topic on those videos lately as far as those comments. The patrons at patreon.com/acservicetech, those ones are, I'll get some pretty deep questions, about whatever's happening there, intermittent problems, how to alleviate some of those problems, or it might be some long question, but I always come back to, if it's a refrigerant charging question, I have to ask, well, what is this low side and the high side sat temp? What's the superheat? What's the subcooling? And what's your delta T? If you give me that, I'll give you the answer, and also if the coil's frozen or not. If you give me that stuff, I'll tell you what's going on, but I need to know that first. And you need to know it.
Yeah. I used to have a service manager back in the day. If you called him and gave him pressures, he would hang up on you. He was like, that's what he would want. He would want saturation temperatures, superheat, and subcooling. And he could tell when some of the guys were trying to BS him. They give him a pressure and then give him a saturation temperature. It is. Somebody gives you a saturation temperature. You've been doing it long enough. Around about what the pressure is going to be. What it converts over to. And these guys would try to fool him. And he's like, yep, I'm not going to help you. Don't waste my time. Click. But the other message I want to get across is just getting it done is not good enough. That we need to try to be better as an industry and do every job to the best of our ability. Like when I first started, I'll be honest, nobody was using, vacuum gauges. It was, you throw the vacuum pump on for 30 minutes, you take it off. It was good. The beer can cold that we joke about, like we evolve and we need to evolve as technicians and it's not just, oh, well, this works or I can braise without nitrogen. Yeah, you can, but why? Like do it the right way. Have that little bit of pride in yourself to go above and beyond. That's when we start setting the bar and all those people, they're going to start rising to the bar because they're going to realize that they're the ones that are doing it wrong. And I feel like the more we got to hold each other accountable, but not into the point where like the trade's been where it's, it's that, beat on my chest, look at me. Like we're all here to help each other. Like, let's just, most of us on social media, we're never going to meet each other in person. We're never going to bid on the same job, work on the same unit. Like I feel like it used to be if somebody helped somebody else, it's like they were, oh, I can't teach that person. They might take my job. Like what,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, let's not have that mentality. Like, let's all help each other. Let's have a bunch of, excuse my language, badass, knowledgeable technicians running around, like really knowing what they're doing, understanding it to a T and really helping people. And that's when you start getting paid what you're worth, when you realize that you are the expert when you go into these homes or these businesses or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So guess who the most valuable person is in a company? It's the person, say that it's not the company owner. It's the person that rises through the ranks, knows how the company operates, can solve problems, and now is investing in others. And so if you have a new hire and you take that new hire and you put him with this technician that knows what's going on and they go through that time period with that technician, they learn, from that technician, what's acceptable, what's not, all that type of stuff. And so if you are getting very good at your job, then you got to start learning how to, like you were saying, you got to be able to communicate that to the younger technicians. And like you said, also, I've been in companies where they didn't want to teach you because they were afraid that you're going to get their raise instead of them. And the reality is, if we all got more valuable, we're going to be faster in the jobs. The company's going to be making more money, and we're all going to get more professional, and it's all going to be good. So what's the deal? And also life. Why does somebody want to do this for a living? You have a good job at the end, you have the customer relationship, you have the supply house relationship. But for me, I'm thinking, well, where's my impact? You know what I'm saying? And so if I had those three and I could add one more, I'm investing in the young person that's wanting to grow. That's fulfillment. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I know it's getting late. It's been past an hour, so I won't keep you too long. Thank you to everybody in the chat. We got to finish, so if you got a question or something you want to ask Craig, please put it in all caps. I'll give you a few minutes, but I can probably only take like one question because we ran over a little too long. Guys, go to acservicetech.com, and if you do not, a bunch of people were saying they already had your book. If you do not have the book, please go do that. That is an awesome resource. I am literally going to buy the book as soon as we get off of this. And don't worry, Mo, I'm going to get it for all the technicians. Cause I think we're going to go over it in the service meetings. This is what I'm talking about at the end of every episode when I say there's no reason that you don't know something because there's so many resources out there for you. So, um,
I was
there's
just, oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I recognize, the rookie HVAC and Jessica Egan and Cooling with Kraus HVAC. Like, it's cool to see, all these people, on multiple platforms and different stuff, and that you get to see some of them in person and stuff. It's, Brian from HVAC school kind of got me out of my, whatever you want to call it, comfort zone, and said, "Hey, man, you got to start coming out to these places and meet people." And I'm like, no, I'm trying to get these other things built, whatever. But it's pretty awesome to meet people face to face. You get emails and stuff saying, hey, this is the impact, but meeting people in real life and being able to encourage them and them encourage you, it's pretty amazing. And I tell you what, I used to always think social media was like, oh, it's a negative thing, and I guess it can be. But in what we're doing, usually it's people are pretty appreciative to what we're trying to do. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I push. I guess when you do things like we do, there's always going to be negatives. So I push that out, and I only worry about the positive stuff, the people that I help. But I agree. When I started doing like AHRs and stuff like that, I go to them like podcasting there live or whatever. Yeah, whatever. I could take it or leave it, to be honest with you. I love to go there and meet people, to hang out with, like me and HVAC Rookie. We hang out. Jessica Egan in here. I got to meet you, Brian Orr, like a bunch of people, being able to meet people in person. Like that is why I love doing the events. That is the main reason. If that's all we did and there was no podcasting or no nothing, I would still do it, because that's been like some of these friendships that I've made, resources that I've had, people I've been able to call. Like some of these guys, I call them and they're some of my best friends, and you know what I mean? Like they live in different states. You know what I mean? It's not even like I'm like, maybe they just haven't seen me be an a-hole yet, and that's why they still like me. I don't know. But it's definitely cool to do that and see the people giving back. But I won't keep you any longer, Craig. I want to thank you so much, like I said, for coming on. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for working with me on the schedule. Being that it was July 4th, and thank you for what you do, man. Like I said, from me watching you and knowing how much you help the technicians that work for us at Beltway, and just talking to other people and how much you helped me. I literally went to a job. I suck at metal. I can fix anything. Can't do metal. Had to make a transition, and I literally watched your video, and I'd stop it, make a piece, watch some, stop, make a piece, and that's literally how I made a transition, because I'm not good at metal. And just knowing what it does for everybody, and the fact that all those resources you give, and you make it about the learning, about giving back to the community. It's not about, I mean, obviously everybody's got to make a living, you got to make money, but it's not about that. It's about giving back to the community, and just seeing how you do that and what you stand for. I think it's freaking amazing. So thank you. I really appreciate it, Craig.
Thanks a lot once again, Gil. I really appreciate you having me on, and like I said, you're an awesome guy. I appreciate how you took it upon yourself to like kind of come over and be like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And just be able to be open and kind of chat about, your family's business and everything like that. And just, it's cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Rookie, just so everybody knows, the picture that's up of this video, where it's me and Craig, HVAC Rookie was technically to Craig's right, but I had to cut him off because I couldn't have too many people in the picture, just so everybody knows. But all right, Craig, let me close this out real fast. All right, everybody, man. This was an awesome show, and I definitely want to get to more of the technical stuff. Like I said, on this channel, we try to cover a little bit of everything, whether it's the communication with the customer, the things you do outside of work to make yourself a better man, a better woman, how you treat your family, to get better technically, all of those different things. And this kind of stuff right here is awesome. I say it every week, and I know I've said this like 4 times already, but there's no reason why you should not be able to better yourself. Between YouTube channels, I said, there we go. YouTube channels, books, podcasts, whatever it is, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. Whatever your path is in this industry, whatever you think it may be, there's no reason that you shouldn't get there. If you don't get there, it's because you didn't want to get there. It's really that simple. I know that's being brutally honest, but that's the truth. Guys, 20 years ago, I was a drug addict piece of shit. And I never thought that I would be anything, but I picked myself up, by my boots. And I said, hey, man, if I'm going to do something, now's the time to do it. And now I got to where I am. And I'm not where I want to be. I'm going to keep going. I'm never going to stop. And you guys know my story. I've been 100% with it the whole time. And I want all of you to keep having that drive, create that momentum. Obviously, it's going to be a roller coaster. It's up and down, but keep moving forward. Don't anybody tell you can't do something. And there's always resources out there for you guys to do it. All right. So make sure you follow me on all the social media sites to stay up to date on everything that's latest and greatest with the podcast. Please give the podcast a review so we can get this out to more people, whatever platform you choose to listen to. Let's see, make sure I'm not missing anything. Blue On member, please go be a Blue On Pro member. Okay, I'm going to do the giveaways in conjunction with Yellow Jacket. I'm giving away all kinds of cool stuff, but you have to be a Blue On Pro member to be able to do it. And when you're a Blue On Pro member, they're going to send a message out to give you the next detail. It's going to start tomorrow. Absolutely free. It costs you nothing. It's an incredible resource. Please make sure you go do that. All right. Thank you to everybody watching. I appreciate you guys. Remember, stay safe out there. We all have somebody to make it home to. We live in a crazy world, okay? Just open your eyes and pay attention. Do the little things. Set yourself apart from the next guy or girl. We've talked about that all tonight. I highly suggest each and every one of you go buy Craig's book, acservicetech.com. Buy that book. Get those resources. Make yourself better, because I guarantee everybody you're with is probably not buying that book. They haven't read it. They're not watching YouTube videos. I wish they were, but hey, why don't you be the leader in that situation? Watch that book and then watch that book. Read that book and then go tell them how powerful it was. And then who knows, maybe you're helping somebody get better. All right? That's how we can start to change this industry one step at a time. All right? All right, that's enough. I want to thank Craig for coming on. I really appreciate what he does for the industry. I was so happy to meet him in AHR. To be able to have him on the podcast is truly amazing. For somebody like him that has done so much for this industry and gives back to it, it's really, really awesome. So, yeah, 2 awesome episodes this week. We'll be back next week with some more episodes. I hope all of you had an amazing July 4th. Thank all of you guys who came and watched the live show. I'm going to do a hangout here soon so I can just communicate with all you guys, but thank you, Rookie, for being a moderator. I appreciate you, buddy. Jessica Egan, Mo, Jacob, trying to see everybody. Zeke, if I missed you, I'm sorry. Isaiah, thank all of you for coming here and watching the live show. Thank you to all of you who watch this after the fact, and to everybody that downloads the audio podcast after the fact. Thank you, guys. Have a great night, and until next time, see ya. Adios.
Thanks for listening to the HVAC Uncensored podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram, or email us anytime at hvacuncensored@gmail.com. Now, get back to work. Shut this down. The views and opinions shared on the HVAC Uncensored podcast may not necessarily be the views and opinions of